Ladies and gentlemen, we've all come across them, the people who leave us feeling drained, discouraged, and doubting our own worth. Toxic people. They don't always wear their true colors on their sleeves, but they leave an impact. Today I want to talk about recognizing the major signs of toxic people so we can protect ourselves, heal, and choose to surround ourselves with those who lift us up. The first sign is constant negativity. Have you ever been around someone who sees the glass half empty all the time? They make every conversation feel like a complaint session. Even when you share your joy, they find a way to dim your light. They'll criticize your dreams, dismiss your successes, and weigh you down with their pessimism. Their negativity isn't just an opinion, it's a drain. They see problems in every opportunity and take no responsibility for their role in the cycle. Then there's manipulation. Toxic people have a way of turning situations to their advantage. They might twist your words, change the narrative, or use guilt to control you. Ever had someone who makes you feel like you're responsible for their unhappiness? They will make you doubt your own actions, feelings, and decisions. It's not about mutual respect or care. It's about power and control. Another sign is lack of accountability. Toxic people never own their mistakes. They'll find someone else to blame for their failures, shifting the weight of their actions onto others. And if you ever try to call them out on it, they'll play the victim. It's exhausting to deal with someone who can't admit they were wrong or work toward growth. Then there's emotional draining. Have you ever been around someone who emotionally exhausts you? Every time they talk to you, it's as if you've been asked to carry their burdens without any relief. They expect you to always be there for them, but when you need support, they're nowhere to be found. Toxic people will constantly demand your energy and never replenish it. It becomes a one-sided relationship, and that imbalance can eat away at your emotional well-being. Let's not forget gaslighting. Toxic individuals make you question your reality, your memory, and your sanity. They distort the truth to the point where you begin to doubt your own perceptions. They'll say things like, "You're just overreacting," or "that never happened." They make you feel like you're the problem when in fact it's them. This can break your trust in yourself. But here's the most important sign of all: lack of respect. Toxic people disrespect boundaries, your time, and your feelings. They'll invade your personal space, disregard your limits, and treat you as if your worth is measured by how much you're willing to tolerate. The disrespect is not just about actions, it's in the words they use, the tone of voice, and the disregard for your emotions. And here's the truth: we should never accept that. Friends, we all deserve peace. We deserve respect. We deserve to be surrounded by people who empower us, who encourage us to be the best versions of ourselves. Toxic people are an anchor, dragging us down, keeping us stuck in a cycle of negativity. But we have the power to recognize them and, more importantly, to distance ourselves from their influence. When you step into your power and say, "I will no longer allow this negativity into my life," you open space for healing, growth, and positivity. Don't let anyone dim your light, because you are meant to shine bright. So if you recognize these signs in people around you, take a moment to reflect. Are they adding value to your life, or are they simply draining your energy? Protect your peace, protect your joy, and above all, protect yourself. You are worthy of only the best. Constant negativity is one of the most pervasive and damaging traits of toxic people. It's not just about occasional pessimism. It's a continual mindset that colors everything they see and say. When you're around someone who constantly views the world through a lens of negativity, it can become emotionally and mentally exhausting, making even the simplest interactions feel draining. Toxic people who possess this trait are often stuck in their own limited perspective, unable or unwilling to see the positives in life. Every situation, no matter how neutral or even potentially uplifting, is twisted into something dark or discouraging. Imagine being in a room with someone who continuously points out what's wrong, who insists that every opportunity will fail, or who never stops complaining about their circumstances. Their language, their body language, their tone, it's all heavy, carrying an undercurrent of dissatisfaction. You could be celebrating a success, something that brings you joy, and instead of sharing in that happiness, they quickly focus on the hurdles that might arise or the reasons why your success might not last. They undermine your confidence in the process, in the journey, and often in your own abilities. In these environments, it's easy to feel like there's no hope or reason to dream because the constant negative reinforcement chips away at your optimism. What's particularly challenging about negativity in toxic individuals is that it often isn't overt. It's not always an outright criticism or an obvious attack on your ideas. Instead, it can come in subtle, almost imperceptible ways that leave you questioning yourself. They may not directly tell you, "You can't do this," but through their remarks or comments, they might suggest that your ideas are unrealistic or that you're setting yourself up for disappointment. They might respond to your excitement about a new venture with, "Well, I hope it works out for you," said in a tone that hints at doubt rather than encouragement. They might tell you about their own experiences where things didn't go well, implying that you'll likely meet the same fate. This constant negativity doesn't just affect your outlook in that moment, it can seep into your long-term thinking. Over time, you might start to internalize their doubts and fears, wondering if your optimism is naive or unrealistic. You might even start second-guessing decisions that once felt right, simply because the negative voices around you have planted seeds of doubt. Eventually, you find yourself taking fewer risks, feeling less inspired, and settling for mediocrity, all because the repeated exposure to negativity has eroded your belief in possibility and growth. The insidious nature of negativity from toxic people lies in its ability to make you feel guilty for your own joy and success. In the presence of someone who can't seem to find anything good in their own life or the lives of others, you begin to feel like you're being selfish or out of touch with reality if you continue to remain hopeful and positive. They subtly push you to lower your expectations, to be realistic, to stop dreaming too big. But what they're really doing is projecting their own fear and limitations onto you. They see their own inability to break free from negativity as a truth that should be universal, rather than an individual experience. This results in a toxic environment where joy and excitement are met with suspicion or even disdain. When you begin to rely on someone with a consistently negative mindset for advice or validation, you inadvertently reinforce their negativity in your own life. You may ask them for their opinion on a project or decision, and instead of offering constructive feedback, they bring up all the things that could go wrong. Rather than suggesting ways to improve, they focus on the challenges and risks, amplifying your doubts. Over time, this becomes a cycle of fear-based thinking. You stop trusting your own instincts and become paralyzed by the idea that everything will eventually fail. This can have a profound impact on your mental health. When you're surrounded by negativity, it's difficult to find the energy to pursue your dreams or take risks. The weight of pessimism creates a barrier to growth, blocking out the possibilities that lie just beyond your comfort zone. The danger of constant negativity is not just in the momentary drain it causes, it also reshapes your identity. When you spend too much time around people who focus on what's wrong, you start to lose sight of what's right. Instead of seeing the good in your life, you begin to focus on what you don't have, what you haven't accomplished, or what could go wrong. Your perception of the world shifts from a place of abundance to a place of scarcity. You stop appreciating the blessings you have because you're too busy searching for what could go wrong next. This becomes a dangerous mental cycle that can eventually lead to depression, anxiety, and a lack of self-worth. Emotional draining is a harmful aspect of toxic behavior that can go unnoticed until it has taken a significant toll on one's mental and emotional well-being. Toxic people often possess a remarkable ability to leave others feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and emotionally depleted. The impact of this emotional drain can be subtle at first, but over time it becomes more apparent and far-reaching. These individuals don't just cause stress in the moment, they manage to keep that stress alive long after the interaction is over. The consistent nature of emotional draining leaves a person in a state of emotional fatigue, unsure of how to regain their sense of energy and balance. Emotional draining often happens when someone consistently demands emotional labor from others without offering anything in return. These people tend to focus primarily on their own needs and emotions without consideration for the emotional resources of those around them. They may dominate conversations with their own problems or use others as a sounding board for their complaints, offering little room for reciprocation. In the beginning, you might be able to listen, empathize, and offer support. However, over time, the constant one-sided nature of the relationship begins to take its toll. You begin to feel that no matter how much you give, it's never enough. The more you listen, the more they expect, and the less likely they are to acknowledge or support you in return. It creates an imbalance in the relationship that can leave you feeling emotionally empty. This constant emotional demand can also come in the form of manipulation. A toxic person might make you feel guilty for not meeting their emotional needs, despite the fact that they don't offer you the same courtesy. They might accuse you of being unsupportive, selfish, or uncaring for needing space or time to yourself. They use your compassion against you, making you feel that if you don't meet their emotional demands, you are somehow failing them. This kind of emotional blackmail is incredibly draining as it forces you to constantly prioritize their emotional needs above your own. In the process, you begin to lose sight of your own boundaries and well-being. The emotional drain is not limited to moments of conversation. It can manifest in all interactions. For instance, toxic individuals often have a knack for creating chaos and drama wherever they go. They are rarely content with calm, peaceful moments. Instead, they may stir conflict, highlight problems that don't exist, or escalate minor issues into major crises. This constant state of unrest can leave you on edge, unsure of when the next emotional outburst or drama will occur. Your body and mind become conditioned to brace for impact, waiting for the next wave of negativity. Over time, this vigilance becomes exhausting, making even the thought of interacting with them feel overwhelming. Another way emotional draining shows up is through guilt and shame tactics. Toxic people often use these emotions as tools for controlling others. They might make you feel as though you owe them your time, attention, or support, even when they're not offering you the same in return. They might say things like, "I can't believe you do this to me after everything I've done for you," or "You're the only one I can count on," placing the burden of their emotional well-being squarely on your shoulders. The weight of these guilt trips accumulates over time, leading to a situation where you feel responsible for their happiness and emotional stability. The reality is, no one person can bear the emotional weight of another without it having a negative effect. You are left feeling drained, as if you have given everything you have without receiving the emotional support you need in return. This behavior often leads to feelings of isolation, as the toxic person may not recognize or care about the toll their actions take on you. Instead of offering help when you need it, they might minimize your feelings or ignore your struggles. They might not listen when you share your own challenges or try to offer advice, but instead they redirect the conversation back to their own problems. Over time, this pattern erodes any sense of connection or mutual understanding. You begin to feel as though your own emotions are unimportant or irrelevant, while theirs are the only ones that matter. One of the most dangerous aspects of emotional draining is that it often leads to self-doubt. As the toxic person continues to take without giving, you may begin to question your own worth. You might feel as though you are incapable of being a good friend, partner, or colleague because you are unable to meet their ever-growing emotional demands. This constant cycle of giving and not receiving can create a sense of inadequacy, as if you're always falling short, no matter how much you try. The more you invest in the relationship, the more you begin to lose a sense of your own identity and value. In relationships where emotional draining is prevalent, there is also the issue of enabling unhealthy behaviors. When you constantly give in to the demands of a toxic individual, you inadvertently enable them to continue their patterns of manipulation, selfishness, and emotional exhaustion. The more you allow them to take without offering anything in return, the more they believe their behavior is acceptable. They may begin to take more and more, believing that they are entitled to your emotional energy. This cycle becomes difficult to break, as you may feel trapped in the role of caregiver or emotional provider, unable to say no or set boundaries without feeling guilty or selfish. The impact of emotional draining extends beyond the individual interaction. It affects your overall mental and physical health. Chronic emotional exhaustion can lead to stress, anxiety, and depression. Your mind and body become overwhelmed by the constant emotional demand, which can have a significant impact on your ability to function. You may find yourself withdrawing from other relationships, feeling too depleted to engage with others or participate in activities that once brought you joy. In extreme cases, the emotional drain from toxic individuals can even affect your physical health, as stress and anxiety take a toll on the body. Sleep disturbances, headaches, fatigue, and other physical symptoms can emerge as a result of prolonged emotional exhaustion. The key to protecting yourself from emotional draining is recognizing the signs early and setting healthy boundaries. It's essential to understand that you are not obligated to give endlessly to someone who is unwilling or unable to reciprocate. While it's important to support those you care about, it's equally important to take care of yourself and preserve your emotional resources. Setting boundaries means learning to say no when necessary and prioritizing your own well-being. It's also essential to communicate your feelings honestly with the toxic person, explaining how their behavior is affecting you. While they may not always respond positively, asserting your boundaries is crucial for maintaining your own mental health. A toxic person's tendency to create instability is one of the most destructive behaviors, as it undermines a sense of peace, security, and trust in any relationship. Instability can manifest in many forms: emotional outbursts, unpredictable moods, constant drama, or sudden shifts in behavior that leave others confused, anxious, and uncertain. This behavior makes it incredibly difficult to establish any sense of consistency or safety when interacting with a toxic person. Without stability, relationships are forced to navigate a landscape of uncertainty, where the next confrontation, emotional reaction, or crisis is always looming on the horizon. In such an environment, it becomes impossible to move forward or build meaningful connections because the ground is constantly shifting beneath your feet. The unpredictable nature of a toxic individual is often one of the most frustrating aspects of dealing with them. They may behave in a way that seems to make no sense, swinging between extreme emotions, actions, or attitudes without any clear reason or warning. One moment they might be warm and affectionate, offering compliments or support, only to suddenly become distant, critical, or even hostile for reasons that are unclear or insignificant. This inconsistency in behavior can be emotionally draining, as you never know which version of the person you are going to encounter. It leads to a sense of walking on eggshells, constantly trying to anticipate their mood or actions in an attempt to avoid conflict or emotional upset. This volatility creates an atmosphere of tension where no one feels truly comfortable or at ease. People around the toxic individual are often left second-guessing themselves, wondering if their actions or words will set off the next emotional explosion. In such a setting, the focus shifts from genuine connection to survival, how to manage the next unpredictable outburst or try to repair the relationship after the latest emotional upheaval. Instead of enjoying the natural flow of communication and interaction, every conversation feels like a delicate balancing act, one where you must remain vigilant, cautious, and constantly aware of how your words or actions may be perceived. The emotional instability that comes with this behavior also means that trust is difficult to establish. Trust relies on predictability, knowing that the person you're interacting with will generally behave in a consistent and reliable way. When someone is emotionally unstable, trust erodes, as you no longer feel confident that their reactions will align with the situation. It's not uncommon for toxic individuals to use manipulation to further the instability in the relationship by feigning hurt or anger in order to keep others guessing about their true feelings. They might accuse you of being insensitive or uncaring, for not anticipating their mood or reacting in the exact way they wanted. This constant shifting of expectations leaves those around them in a state of emotional disarray, unable to know where they stand or how to effectively communicate with the person. The impact of such instability often extends beyond the person directly involved. In group settings, it can disrupt the entire dynamic, causing others to feel insecure, anxious, or on edge. If someone is frequently unpredictable or prone to emotional outbursts, others may begin to withdraw, avoiding interactions to protect their own emotional well-being. Over time, this can lead to a breakdown in relationships as people distance themselves from the chaos and instability created by the toxic person. The sense of community or connection that is essential to any group is eroded, leaving individuals feeling isolated or unsupported. Those who remain in close proximity to the toxic individual may begin to mirror the instability themselves, becoming anxious, defensive, or disengaged as a way to cope with the constant emotional turbulence. Instability also fosters a sense of insecurity, where nothing feels grounded or certain. This can apply to both personal and professional environments. In the workplace, for example, a toxic person's behavior may create confusion or disarray within the team. Their erratic actions or decisions might derail projects, create unnecessary conflict, or lead to a lack of direction. Colleagues may begin to feel as though their efforts are being undermined, as the toxic person's unpredictable actions disrupt the workflow and goals of the team. The constant uncertainty and shifting expectations prevent people from feeling confident in their roles or in the progress of their work, which ultimately reduces productivity and morale. Manipulation is a deeply troubling trait in toxic people, one that often goes unnoticed until its impact is already felt. It's not always as overt or obvious as other negative behaviors, but it is just as damaging, if not more so. Manipulation is an attempt to control or influence others by distorting facts, using emotional leverage, or preying on vulnerabilities. The manipulative individual often does this with the goal of gaining power, control, or personal gain at the expense of others. Understanding the signs of manipulation can help us recognize when we're being manipulated, so we can set boundaries and protect ourselves from further harm. One of the most common tactics of manipulation is playing on the emotions of others. A manipulative person may use guilt, fear, or even love to influence decisions. Guilt tripping is particularly common. The manipulator may make you feel responsible for their emotions, their well-being, or even their failures. For example, they might say things like, "After everything I've done for you, you can't do this one thing for me," or "If you really cared about me, you'd help." These statements are designed to create a sense of obligation, making you feel as though you have no choice but to comply. They may use your kindness or sense of responsibility against you, knowing that your desire to help or not disappoint will push you to act against your better judgment. A manipulative person might also prey on your insecurities or vulnerabilities to get what they want. They understand your weaknesses, the things that make you feel uncertain or anxious, and they use those to their advantage. For instance, they might know that you struggle with feelings of inadequacy or fear of rejection, so they exploit those feelings to get you to do things for them, often without any regard for your own needs or desires. They might convince you that you're the only person who can help them, or that you're the only one they trust, making you feel special in order to tie you closer to them. This sense of being indispensable creates a dependency, one that makes it hard for you to say no without feeling guilty or selfish. Another manipulation tactic is distortion of reality or gaslighting. This occurs when a manipulator tries to make you question your own perceptions, memories, or sanity. They may deny things they've said or done, leaving you second-guessing yourself and your understanding of events. For example, if you confront a manipulative person about something they did or said, they might respond with, "I never said that," or "You're just imagining things." Over time, this can erode your self-confidence and make you doubt your own reality. The manipulator may convince you that you are the problem, making you feel like you're overreacting or being unreasonable, when in fact, their actions are the source of the distress. Manipulators are often skilled at creating confusion, making it difficult for you to pinpoint exactly what's happening. They may shift the blame for their actions onto you, subtly suggesting that you are responsible for the fallout or problems in the relationship. This could be in the form of subtle hints like, "I only did this because you pushed me," or "If you hadn't said that, I wouldn't have reacted the way I did." By redirecting the blame to you, they avoid taking responsibility for their own behavior and place the onus of guilt and shame on you instead. This creates a toxic cycle where you are constantly apologizing or trying to make things right, even when you've done nothing wrong. Another form of manipulation is playing the victim. A manipulative person may frequently position themselves as a martyr or as someone who is constantly wronged by others, especially when it benefits them. They might complain about how life has treated them unfairly or about all the things they've had to endure, hoping that you will feel sorry for them and offer help or support. This tactic works because it taps into your empathy and desire to help those who are struggling. The manipulator uses your compassion as a tool to get what they want, often in the form of your time, attention, or resources. They may also use this victim mentality to justify their toxic behavior, such as when they manipulate you into feeling sorry for them after they've hurt you. They shift the focus away from their harmful actions and instead make you feel guilty for questioning or confronting them. One of the most insidious aspects of manipulation is that it often happens slowly, over time, making it harder to recognize in the moment. At first, a manipulative person may seem charming, charismatic, or even loving. They may make you feel special, appreciated, or needed, all while subtly introducing manipulative tactics into the relationship. Over time, these tactics become more frequent and more ingrained until you find yourself in a situation where you feel obligated to do things you don't want to do or making decisions that aren't in your best interests. The manipulator may even convince you that you're lucky to have them in your life, reinforcing the idea that you're somehow indebted to them, even when they aren't reciprocating your kindness. Manipulation isn't just a matter of someone being occasionally difficult or self-centered. It's a pattern of behavior designed to control or influence others without their consent. It's often driven by the manipulator's need to maintain power or to protect their own interests at the cost of others' well-being. And because manipulators are often skilled at making their actions appear harmless or justified, it can be challenging to recognize the abuse until it's too late. By the time you realize what's happening, you might find yourself trapped in a relationship or situation where your autonomy and emotional well-being are being constantly undermined. This is why recognizing manipulation early is essential. The longer you allow a manipulative person to exert control over you, the harder it becomes to break free from their influence. And while it's important to be aware of the signs, it's equally important to trust your instincts. If something feels off or you feel like you're being manipulated, it's crucial to take a step back and assess the situation. Manipulative behavior often involves subtle cues that can be easily overlooked or dismissed. But when you start to notice patterns, it's essential to act on them. Protecting your emotional and mental health should always be your priority. And recognizing manipulation is the first step toward regaining control and ensuring that your relationships are healthy and mutually respectful. Lack of accountability is one of the most damaging traits of toxic individuals. This behavior often manifests itself in a refusal to own up to one's mistakes, which ultimately results in a breakdown of trust and mutual respect in relationships. When someone cannot or will not take responsibility for their actions, it creates an atmosphere where nothing is ever resolved and there is no room for growth. Accountability is the foundation of any healthy relationship, whether personal or professional. Without it, there is no sense of fairness or trust, and the individual or group dynamics are likely to be in constant turmoil. A person who avoids accountability often deflects responsibility, shifting the blame onto others or external circumstances. They are quick to find excuses for why something went wrong, but rarely, if ever, acknowledge their role in the situation. This can manifest in many ways, ranging from denying their involvement in a conflict, minimizing their contribution to a problem, or straight up accusing others of causing the issue. For instance, if a project fails at work, a toxic individual might claim that they were not given enough resources, that someone else did not meet expectations, or that external factors like timing were the real reasons for failure, all while ignoring the fact that their own lack of effort or miscommunication may have played a key role in the outcome. The refusal to take accountability often leads to a culture of blame, where no one feels responsible for their actions and everyone points fingers at others. This creates a toxic environment because no one is willing to learn from mistakes or work towards solutions. In this kind of environment, progress becomes nearly impossible. People may find themselves covering for one another, trying to patch up mistakes that should have been addressed in the first place. Instead of discussing what went wrong and how to fix it, the focus shifts to who is at fault, which ultimately prevents any real resolution. The issue may never be dealt with properly, and the cycle of blame continues, leaving problems unresolved and festering over time. The manipulative nature of avoiding accountability also means that toxic individuals can often shift the narrative to make themselves appear as victims or even martyrs. They might argue that they are unfairly treated, that circumstances beyond their control are responsible for the negative outcomes, or that they are the ones who suffer as a result of the situation. This kind of thinking prevents them from acknowledging the role their own actions played in the failure. Instead of facing up to their shortcomings, they focus on how things have gone wrong for them and how they've been wronged by others. This behavior not only hinders personal growth, but also damages relationships, as the people around them start to feel as though their concerns and feelings are dismissed. When there is a lack of accountability, there is also a lack of trust. If someone consistently refuses to own up to their mistakes or takes responsibility for their actions, it becomes difficult to trust them in the future. You begin to wonder if their promises or commitments are genuine, or if they will find a way to escape responsibility when things don't go according to plan. Trust is built on consistency and reliability, and when someone avoids accountability, it chips away at the foundation of that trust, leaving you questioning their sincerity and intentions. Over time, this distrust can lead to emotional distance and even a breakdown of the relationship entirely. Another aspect of a person's lack of accountability is the way it impacts those around them. When toxic individuals refuse to acknowledge their own behavior, it forces others to pick up the slack or clean up the mess. In the workplace, this can manifest in colleagues taking on additional tasks or covering for someone's shortcomings. In personal relationships, it can look like one person constantly having to apologize or make excuses for the other's behavior. This dynamic not only creates resentment, but also fosters a sense of imbalance, where one person feels burdened by the constant need to compensate for another's lack of responsibility. This imbalance erodes any sense of fairness and mutual respect, as one person becomes increasingly exhausted by carrying the weight of another's neglect. Avoiding accountability also hinders growth, both individually and collectively. Personal growth requires the willingness to recognize mistakes, learn from them, and strive to improve. Without accountability, there is no acknowledgement of errors or flaws, and therefore no opportunity for self-improvement. This leads to stagnation. People who refuse to take responsibility for their actions often remain trapped in the same destructive patterns, never evolving or learning from their experiences. This can be incredibly frustrating for those who care about them, as it becomes clear that the individual is not interested in changing or growing. In a workplace or collaborative environment, this lack of growth can be detrimental to the entire team, as progress is stalled and the collective potential is diminished.